Have you ever engaged in a compulsive behavior where you felt like you really were almost possessed and you felt emotionally forced to engage in that behavior, even though you know it wasn't good for you? Maybe it was drinking too much, maybe it was smoking, or maybe it was overeating. Well, I'm Todd Goodwin, and as a hypnotist over the years, I've encountered this situation many times when clients have come to me with that issue. And what's an interesting part of the compulsive pattern is the guilt that comes after the behavior. So, have you experienced this? Where, let's just say, you overeat or you indulge in some kind of activity that you know is not in your long term best interest, but at least in the moment, it seems like a good idea. Well, the guilt that follows it is supposed to be a checks and balances system. In other words, the purpose of guilt in general is to tell us that we violated a rule that we have set for ourselves, or we have violated some value that we ideally think is important, but yet we violated it. It could be guilt because you feel you've offended someone or done something that many people consider to be wrong, but really it's not about what other people consider to be bad or wrong, it's what you consider. So let's just say you're eating healthy, you're trying to lose weight or make improvements to your well-being through healthy eating, and then you overdo it and you indulge in all kinds of junk food. And no matter how you feel physically afterwards, sometimes there's this emotional pain that you feel and there's guilt. And if you beat yourself up, well, the unconscious intention of that guilt, the reason why it happens, is it's to remind you that you strayed off course. Now, ideally, that guilt will actually stop you from doing it again. But that's not how our minds work. What usually happens is the guilt causes us to feel bad, and that bad feeling makes us more susceptible to returning or repeating that undesirable behavior. So, what happens is, generally, when we feel uncomfortable or feel bad in some way, we're more apt to engage in pleasurable activities that provide an instant gratification or short-term benefit, even at our long-term expense. So let's just say you're trying to lose weight, and you may have been somewhat successful, and then it seems like you sabotage it. Well, the worse you feel about it, the more likely you are to sabotage yourself again. So, when people tell me maybe I should feel more guilty, maybe the problem is I'm not feeling guilty enough, and I'm quick to correct them and to say, actually, no. Part of the problem, part of what maintains this compulsion, is the guilt itself. Now, how could this be? Well, whenever you have a compulsion, there's pain and pleasure linked to the same behavior, and that's part of what creates this. So, the pleasure in this example is eating the junk food or the sweets or overeating. That's the pleasure part. The pain is the punishment that you may have inflicted on yourself afterwards by feeling bad about it. And that feeling of guilt or shame afterwards causes you to go down in terms of your level of emotional well-being. It suppresses your self-esteem because you're beating yourself up. It makes you feel worse. And the worse you feel, the more you need to eat in order to feel good. So, one of the ways to solve this issue is by eliminating the guilt. So if I've worked with someone for a session or two for this issue, and they come in and they say, you know what, I was eating better this week, but I did overeat one time, but the difference is I didn't feel bad about it. As if they should be worried that they're still overeating, and I say, you know, I would rather that you indulge in that food and not feel bad about it than to indulge in the food and feel bad. One of the ways of eliminating compulsion is by getting rid of the pain consequence. And many people wonder, if they felt no guilt, would they just become Cookie Monster and overeat everything? That's a fear, but it's not reality. What happens is when the guilt is gone, your self-esteem is higher, and you're able to engage in an objectionable behavior and actually accept it and say, you know what, it's okay, I'm human, I've learned from it, And if you fall, you get back up again. You keep moving. So if you feel guilty about things you've done to yourself, or you feel regretful and you're upset at yourself or beating yourself up because you've eaten too much or fallen off the wagon if you're trying to change your habits, remember that the guilt or the self-recrimination and criticism is likely making it harder for you to behave according to your long-term goals. So as a hypnotist, I use hypnosis and related mind tools to eliminate that guilt, increase self-respect and self-esteem, no matter what behaviors are being engaged in. And once that happens, then you feel good enough inside to realize you don't need to drink or smoke or overeat or distract yourself to feel good, because you're feeling better in general. And that is one of the most important and critically essential ways of eliminating any compulsion.